It came up from India and swept across Europe. Mountains and oceans only slowed it down. It rushed through towns and cities alike. Many caught it, but few survived. It traveled by riverways and canals. People ran, but it ran with them. Transportation didn't hinder the spread of cholera, but rather added to the conflict. People died, sometimes within hours of the symptoms. There was to be no escape for many. It was cholera.
During the 1800s, cholera swept through the Western Hemisphere. Thousands died, and panic reigned supreme. Conflicts over how to stop and prevent cholera added to the chaos. Indiana was not spared. Hundreds died, and whole towns dropped off the map. New developments in transportation, like steamships and new trains, helped cholera travel faster than what was possible in the last century. Finally, people like George Sutton, John Snow, Robert Koch, and others brought the compromise of sanitation and what cholera is.
Before the 1830s, cholera was mostly found in India, especially in the Ganges River region. In the early 1830s, cholera came up into Europe, and in June 1832, it came into the United States. Steamships along the river and later trains helped it spread significantly. Between 1832 and 1883, cholera raged on and off, with people only guessing how to stop it. Cholera comes from eating, or more often drinking, since it has the bacteria Vibrio cholerae. Most outbreaks come from an infected person's feces mixing with the drinking water. People were contagious before the symptoms showed, so when fleeing one town as fast as possible, cholera would only spread quicker. Cholera killed people by extreme dehydration. The symptoms of cholera are severe diarrhea and vomiting. Later on, the strain has a bluish tinge, and from the start, the victim's voice is hoarse. Cholera might have been one word for several diseases, with only the one caused by Vibrio cholerae especially fatal. One doctor at the time wrote about cholera, in fact, abdominal pain and danger to each other in an inverse ratio. For the greater the pain, the less the danger, and the less the pain, the greater the danger.
Cholera struck mercilessly throughout Indiana during the years following its arrival. Always there, but sometimes worse. Madison, Indiana, a town along the Ohio River, was hit by all three cholera epidemics. While the epidemic of 1849 had more than 100 deaths, John Craven said in the Madison in the Long Ago column of the Madison Courier, the column ran from 1883 to 1885, that 1833 was the worst cholera epidemic since Madison was so small then. He said, "Some of the professional gentlemen named were here and grappled with that dread monster, the cholera, in 1833 when it made its first appearance in this county, and remorselessly gathered its victims, as it has never done since. The population of the town was small, and many of the people had fled to find shelter and safety with friends and acquaintances in the country, for the scourge seemed only the more eager to make sure of those who remained. The rich and poor, the fair and beautiful, the young and old, the timid and the brave, were equally and alike victims of this remorseless embrace. Those who have since known the cholera, by the sporadic cases that have come under their observation, can have no adequate idea of what it was when exerting its power as an epidemic in a malignant form." In Madison, the 1833 epidemic often left people not being properly buried. Those who remained, for the most part, stayed within their homes, engaged in nursing the sick and preparing the dead for burial, but in many cases the sick and dying had but little care and no preparation for a grave. The dead in many instances were placed in wooden boxes and sent hurriedly to the grave. Sometimes 2 or 3 would be seen on one dray, unattended and lonely, on their way to the city of the dead.
Madison was not the only place. In 1833, the only time, the cholera spread suddenly, taking many victims. In June 1849, work began a canal that would connect Lake Erie in Toledo, Ohio, and the Ohio River in Evansville, Indiana, about 460 miles. This canal would be important for transporting goods. Soon after work began, it had to stop because of cholera among the canal workers, which were mostly Irish immigrants. This is a video of part of the canal today. Despite the severe outbreak of cholera, the canal was finished by June 1852. In 1860, the canal was scarcely used because railroads were replacing the need for canals by transporting people and goods. In 1876, the Indiana part of the canal was sold. It is sad to think that a canal where it is estimated that work died every 6 feet was used for less than 25 years.
In 1849, the canal workers were not the only massive victims of cholera. In the 1849 outbreak of cholera, Aurora, Indiana was hit especially hard. Many people in Aurora, Indiana were river traders who would go down south for the winter. In the winter of 1848 to 1849, New Orleans had cholera in its most malignant form. Some of the people from Aurora were in New Orleans at the time, and a few were sick with cholera when they came back to Aurora. At first, the people of Aurora just had a mild form of cholera. But as the month of May progressed, the cholera in Aurora started to become more and more dangerous, and eventually more deadly. During the deadly conflict of cholera, many people came up with the compromise of running away from this deadly disease. 3 weeks after cholera took on a malignant form, 1,600 out of Aurora's population of 2,000 left. Out of those people, 13 of them died of cholera, and at least some of them spread cholera with blood. The 1849 epidemic of cholera in Aurora is very well documented thanks to Dr. George Sutton, who lived in Aurora at the time. George Sutton's book is called A Report to the Indiana State Medical Society on Asiatic Cholera as it prevailed within the state of Indiana during the years 1849, 1850, 1851, and 1852, with observations on the laws which govern its process, in which he considered different possibilities for why cholera was so bad in 1849, and less so in 1850 to 1852, when there was only a few cases.
While Sutton did wonders in Aurora, 2 men from Europe made a big impact on cholera worldwide. John Snow, a man whose trend would find him causing cholera, was born on March 15, 1813 in York, England. He was only 14 when he was apprenticed to a surgeon. Unlike most doctors at the time, Snow did not believe in the miasma theory about cholera, a theory that cholera was spread by bad smells. Snow believed firmly that cholera entered the body through the mouth. In August 1854, in Soho, cholera broke out. Snow used a dot map to find the source, a pump on Broad, now called Broadwell Street. He looked in the water with a microscope and found white things, which he believed was the cause of cholera. He managed to convince the people who drank from the Broad Street pump that the pump was the source of the cholera outbreak. The compromise was removing the pump handle so that no water could be drawn from the pump. After he had the handle removed from the pump, the cholera cases greatly diminished. Snow died on the 16th of June, 1854, of a stroke. Even though Snow found that the cholera was caused by bacteria, it was not proved that it was that bacteria that caused cholera until 1883, when a man called Robert Koch proved it. Robert Koch was born on December 11, 1843, at Klostertal in the Upper Harz Mountains in Germany. Koch, an intelligent child, taught himself to read using newspapers when he was only 5 years old. Koch attended the University of Nottingham to study medicine in 1862. Koch proved that a bacteria that had been previously discovered was the cause of anthrax by putting the blood of sick animals in healthy ones. In 1883, Koch proved that the bacteria previously discovered by Snow was the reason for cholera. In 1905, Koch was awarded the Nobel Prize for Medicine for his work concerning tuberculosis. On May 27, 1910, Koch died of a heart attack.
After the bacteria that caused cholera was made known worldwide, people started understanding more about how cholera spread, and thus being able to prevent it. However, clean water was still often unavailable for plenty of people. Soon, though, developments like running water and water treatments pushed the risk of cholera out of the United States. During World War II, some soldiers who went overseas watched this video. This video shows sanitation techniques. Now there is both a vaccine and an antibiotic for cholera, but people sometimes still get cholera due to lack of clean water in countries such as the Democratic Republic of Congo, Haiti, Kenya, and Nigeria.
The conflict cholera swept through the nation and killed thousands. However, cholera is now gone from the United States. For this we can thank all those who fought with the war with cholera. Those who instead of compromising by running away, compromised by choosing to research cholera and write about it. One of these men was George Sutton, who carefully corresponded with the doctors across the state to document Indiana's outbreak.
Another was Robert Koch, who proved a certain bacteria was the cause of cholera.
John Snow, yet another of these people, traced an outbreak to a pump, and when the people compromised and removed the pump's handle, the outbreak lessened.
While John Cravens didn't document the science of cholera, he did describe the horrors of Madison's 1833 epidemic, which he himself witnessed.
All these people and more help us remember what happened back then by recording it in books, newspapers, and the like.
The desperation,
The many deaths.
finding the cause, and preventing cholera.
All those things and more.